CJ Mosley said something very, very interesting in the past week. And this is a story here in New York because nobody would have thought one of their leaders were going to come out and throw the Jets under the bus. But CJ Mosley has probably seen some interesting things so far in the last couple of weeks on the field. He's been over there, non-mandatory OTAs, now mandatory OTAs. He says, and I'll quote this, it's a playoff or bust year for the New York Jets. Now, the Jets have made some great acquisitions in the offseason. They really have. Asuma, Conklin, defensive line help. They've added offensive line help in Lincoln Tomlinson. They've added so many good pieces to a roster that was very depleted. And now, with the draft that they had this year, they added the best running back in Breece Hall, one of the best pass rushers at number 26, Jermaine Johnson, getting the best wide receiver at number 10 in Wilson, and then arguably getting the best player in the whole draft in Sauce Gardner. This team is absolutely rebooted in the offseason, and that has a lot to do with their all-star in Joe Douglas. But I think the most important thing this offseason is the growth of their quarterback. Zach Wilson needs to take at least 5 to 6 steps forward for this team to compete. Now, do I think Zach Wilson is talented enough with a great offensive line and with weapons now on the outside in Wilson, Davis, Moore, Mims, and a running game that has Hall and Carter, Conklin, Uzma? This team is capable of competing offensively in the AFC.
Very interesting transformation for CJ Mosley, a guy that 2 years ago opted out of the season and then was found seen in bars and partying when he was allegedly sitting out for COVID. And Jets fans were not liking it. He was shown as not a leader. And now 2 years later, he's at OTAs, mandatory OTAs, helping out these young players and firing up, and now says playoff or bust. What a transformation for somebody like CJ Mosley in terms of his impact as a leader on this Jets team. And that's something you definitely like to see. Whether they make the playoffs or not, that's another question, but it's something that you definitely could say fires guys up. Will it put some pressure on them? Sure, but I think your team is young. They're not expected to make the playoffs. They're going to have to still overcome a tough AFC, especially with the North and the West, in order to battle out for wild card spots. In their own division, realistically, they might get second. Miami still has a lot of question marks, and the Patriots were cash strapped, so they weren't able to do much this offseason. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were second in their own division. Again, I don't mind them firing up to say that. They can't get any worse than last year. The Jets had a great offseason. They're not going to get worse unless they have a catastrophic amount of injuries. Zach Wilson, like you said, will be a question for them. I also think Mike LaFleur, we got to see with the play calling, will he be able to use it the right way? But now they have the weapons to be able to do so. So it's up to him to be able to make it work and get the play calling, because we've definitely seen the play calling last year be very stale.
The Lions, they're the youngest team right now in the NFL after the draft that they had. The Jets are a top 5 young team in the NFL. So being that they're one of the youngest teams in the NFL, it shows you the growth of what some of these players and some of these veteran players like CJ Mosley believes in this team. Quentin Williams could be a very important factor now with the Jets having 2 pass rushers and Curry and Lawson coming back, and now adding a guy like Jermaine Johnson to the edge. It's going to make Quentin Williams even better this year. This team, offensively and defensively, are going to be fun to watch. But Zach Wilson is absolutely going to have to step forward. He's got to stop making bad mistakes in the pocket. And when he moves outside of the pocket, make sure that you can throw those short passes. Those were a problem for him last year. Not in the second half of the season, but in the first half, he made a lot of mistakes on the short, over-the-top passes that he was trying to get to his wide receivers and sometimes his running back. So it's very important to see the growth of Zach Wilson. It's usually the second and the third year where you see that overbearing growth of those quarterbacks. So do I think he could do it? Do I think he has the talent to do that? I think he has all the talent in the world. And I think it was smart for him to break up with his girlfriend at the end of the season. Maybe it was distraction. I'm very excited to see what this Jets team is going to do as a Jet fan. And having one of your leaders in CJ Mosley, an all-star, an all-pro type of player, coming out and saying that, it says a lot about the team. As far as Terry McLaurin is concerned, I felt bad for Terry McLaurin because you see all these contracts and Tyreek Hill getting traded and getting all that money. And then Adams getting all the money that he did. Christian Kirk got his money from Jacksonville. McLaurin is light years better than Christian Kirk.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy has been the best offensive player they have drafted. I don't even remember the last time they had an offensive player this good that they've drafted. The last good wide receiver they had was Santana Moss, which was a Jet, a free agent pickup. They've never had a talent like this before in the last 15 years. McLaurin getting his $23.5 million per year, $53 million guaranteed for the next 3 to 4 years. It tells you they're finally putting all their hope into this player to being one of the elite wide receivers in the league.
Guy that's durable, a guy that's been pretty consistent, a little streaky in terms of this game to game this year, but consistent year to year with a lot of bad quarterback play, coming in with somebody like Kyle Allen, then Taylor Heinicke. The unfortunate injury with Alex Smith right before he got there didn't help, but they had to deal with a lot, and he still was putting up numbers, putting up consistency, and really doing well overcoming that amidst all the dysfunction that's gone on within the Washington front office, on and off the field. And McLaurin's been a steadily productive guy, a guy that was drafted really for Dwayne Haskins as a guy that was a teammate with him at the time, a third-round pick that in a loaded wide receiver class was not supposed to be the best one. He arguably is the best one, or maybe second to Deebo Samuel in this class, and he's been a guy that they've needed to sign. And finally, Washington does something right in terms of keeping their own players and not overpaying other free agents.
I think when you look at the big picture and you look at the situation on where the Commanders are, they needed to sign him. They needed Carson Wentz there. They added the speedy Dotson from Penn State. So I'm interested to see what this team is going to be offensively. McLaurin has never had another good wide receiver on the other side. And they did bring in Curtis Samuel last year, who didn't play all season last year. So now you have 3 predominantly good wide receivers with Carson Wentz. This could be a fun, high-flying team, but this team is built on defense. So I expect this defense, for what they did in the second half of the season, completely shut down teams in their front seven, to do the same this year. So I think having McLaurin in the mix is a good sign, especially with everything that's going on outside of the team with their front office and ownership.
Yeah.
So
an ownership that might not be much longer.
Oh, thank God. Seriously. Adam Schefter has been saying that they're in a shambles right now with what's going on with the cheerleader stuff and everything that's going on. With John Gruden suing the league, and there's going to be a lot of things coming out on the Washington Commanders. So I feel bad for John Gruden, because John Gruden was the one that really got thrown to the wolves. It wasn't ownership over there in Washington or Roger Goodell, who was trying to hide everything. So Roger Goodell might not have a job if these stories get even deeper. As far as the DeShaun Watson situation, and as the NFL had him in the courts in meetings all week trying to figure out how long his suspension is going to be, a lot of people think he should be out for the year. Some people say 10 games. Some believed 6 games. Innocent until proven guilty. There has been no proof of anything that these stories are completely true. Now, 3 stories he's admitted to. He's had sex with one of the girls. 2 of the other girls, he admitted that other things were going on. But he has proven that both girls were agreeing to every single thing that he was asking for or they were offering. The other 20 girls that he had a settlement with, it's done. It's over with. Nothing was proven out of those 20 allegations. With the Deshaun Watson thing, I think it's going overboard over 10 games. You cannot suspend this kid for a whole season when there's really no full proof that he did any of these allegations. I'm going to be interested to see where they go, because wherever they go, they're going to have to decide what they're doing with Baker Mayfield. Because if he is out for the season, why would they get rid of Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield would be the starting quarterback for the year for this team. If Baker has a good year, they can move him. They can get the first-round draft pick they can get for Baker if he steps up and gets this team in the playoffs, where they're not considered a playoff team this year with the Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens as good as they are.
They can be if they actually have a quarterback, but beyond that, no, they're not going to be if they have.
I don't think they're good enough.
I think their talent is fantastic. It's just a matter of, do they have a quarterback to play? Because
who's their lead wide receiver this year?
Amari Cooper.
So you think you can win with just Amari Cooper?
And the tight ends and the running game? Yeah. Offensive line is the best in the league the last 2 years.
Have not proven anything to me. They overpaid.
I agree. They overpaid Austin Hooper.
Austin Hooper and the other kid.
I don't think they overpaid Njoku. I think Njoku's contract was pretty fair. But I think as a tandem, it's still pretty good. They're well coached. They've had the best performance offensive line the last 2 years. I think they could be a playoff team if they have some level of a stable quarterback.
Not the way the AFC is.
I think the Ravens are a little better.
A little better? The Ravens fought injury last year. They had no running back. They had one wide receiver, which they traded off, and now the other kid that they drafted, Bateman. I think the Ravens are much better. Defensively, they added Hamilton in the draft. They added Lindenbaum, a center, to their offensive line. An offensive line that's gotten better over the last 2 years. I think the Ravens are definitely one of the teams to beat in the division. And the Bengals, the upgrade they did to the offensive line, they're definitely the favorites of winning that division. As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they're going to be favorites.
Nevertheless, the Browns are still wasting a very good roster with having all this quarterback dysfunction, and that's going to be a big problem for them if other guys are going to want out too. Baker Mayfield wants out from there. Who says he's the first one and not the only one? Because right now, Andrew Berry shifted with these contracts to where they're managing it this year. They even shifted DeShaun Watson. If he even doesn't play this year, he's only, I think, getting $10 million or something this year, and then all the big money comes the next 4 years. But all of a sudden, all these big contracts are going to get big all at once, and then you're going to have the same problem the Saints did this offseason.